Media, IJ Mobad. It's Friday, the 11th of July, 2025. Let's talk about the coroner inquest for singer Mobad, which came out today, almost 2 years later. The inquest came out, and they have determined by the courts that Mobad died of a drug interaction, which caused the anaphylaxis that killed him. They're only going to prosecute the nurse. At the last coroner inquest, they made it clear that they were not going to prosecute his wife because his wife did not kill him. They also clearly said in the last update that Naira Marley, Sam Larry, and Prime Boy were exonerated from the case and they have no hand in it. According to the Director of Public Prosecutions, the DPP, who said in his last update that he was going to prosecute Spending and the nurse. Now, everything looks different today. In October, the DPP addressed the media, telling us that he's going to give us the toxicology test that went to America. It's finally here. In a few weeks, you'll get the toxicology test. That was October. This is 9 months later. We never received that toxicology test to actually see for ourselves via transparency what actually killed Mobad. Please bear with me. I'm near a sunset. At the end of the day, this case was not prosecuted well in the coroner inquest. It will not be prosecuted well in the criminal court. The case is now revolving around a nurse who was practicing without the proper licenses to administer that kind of drugs. I will take you back to when this case broke. This was one of the reasons that I was antagonizing VDM not to interview witnesses, because this coroner inquest was coming and it could greatly influence it. Now everybody has to stop and be on a standstill. I did an 18-month investigation, was quite expensive, and I've even showed receipts and money that I spent. $10,200. $2,200 was donated by fans, and I used $8,000 out of all my monetizations for months. At the end of the day, investigative journalism is expensive. Nobody investigated this case in the entire Nigerian media, and everybody ran away from it because of the so-called powerful forces who are influencing the case. Now, leave those forces aside. If I were to ask the judge on how this verdict came about, we would have known from day one. The inquest said at one point that, yes, we know that Naira Marley and Sam Larry bullied him, but we don't have a cause of death for him. Where is the toxicology test in America that we were promised? It wasn't shown to the media. Why wasn't it shown to the media? Now, there's an aspect of causation here, and Nigerians may not know what that is, but I want everybody to Google it. Causation criminal law. Causation, C-A-U-S-A-T-I-O-N, in criminal law. Causation is used a lot in America. I don't know how often they use it in Nigeria. I'm not familiar with too much of Nigerian law. But this should have been included somewhere down the line because the cause of Mobad's death is secondary to something. Yes, we were told by the police chief, Owonha, before he left for the Interpol. Chief Owonha told us that ceftriaxone was administered among a cocktail of drugs on Mobad, and Mobad had an anaphylactic reaction, which is a very dangerous reaction to the drugs. Anything can cause anaphylaxis. Even when we had children that were small in America, they go to camp, you have to put epinephrine in their bags. Epinephrine has a pen, it looks like a pen, but it's an injection, in case they're bitten by a bee or anything. When you have a severe allergic reaction that can cause you to stop breathing, that's anaphylaxis. And that's what they said Mobad had in response to the ceftriaxone, which he reacted to. When you're administering ceftriaxone, I'm a pharmacist, by the way, retired pharmacist, 37 years, 1988. When you're administering ceftriaxone to a patient, it has to be in a clinical setting, meaning in a doctor's office or a hospital. Because if the patient reacts, you have to be able to do the antidote with epinephrine right there. But Mobad was in a fight, a violent fight. He was tipsy, he was high, and he was in a violent fight that started in the car knocking his hands and injuring his hands, and then with his wife, and then up the steps. I interviewed 4 people out of 15 that lived in the house and witnessed the fight. And what I found out was that in the middle of the violent fight, which is very common with Mohbad and his wife, Wunmi Adebanjo, his common law wife, she pushed him across the stair railings. That broke, and a piece of that stabbed Mohbad in the neck. Mohbad had a neck puncture. It was so obvious when they exhumed him where the livor mortis blood was coming from. And of course, his neck bent in the coffin. He had a neck injury, and the way they embalmed him. At the end of the day, the causation law was not included, because if you put that in, what directly caused the death was the drug, but indirectly was secondary to a fight. His wife was not charged. And this is what they've been trying to cover all along, so that she doesn't get prosecuted. I don't know how to advise Mr. Loba because I'm not a lawyer, but if you can appeal coroner inquest, he should appeal it. For one, there is no toxicology test. The fake toxicology test that they gave Cable NG in May of last year, I deciphered it on Daddy Freeze. And Daddy Freeze was told that there's some drugs in here in Mohbad's system that we don't even market in Nigeria, like diphenhydramine 50 milligrams injection. Something was not right. We traced that toxicology test to a lab in Pennsylvania in USA. The American fans went up there. They directed them to another third-party lab. We found out the third-party lab was owned by the same guy that owns the lab in Lagos. So why can't we do a toxicology test in Nigeria when all the drug abuse and rehab centers do them when they bring new drug addicts for treatment? Why did we have to shroud Mohbad's tests and everything in secrecy? Because his wife had a fight with him. Visibly at the first funeral, there were bumps on this woman's head. Wunmi Adebanjo had bumps swelling in her head from the fight. She covered her head with a scarf, and she was ushered to the grave, and she threw something in there like a calabash. They call it ado in Yoruba. I think Mohbad's dad should not bury Mohbad yet and appeal as much as he can appeal. We need that toxicology test for transparency. This young man had a lot of fans. Everyone in Nigeria should take a placard and peacefully go protest at your House of Assemblies. Mohbad was a phenomenon. He had a future. Though he didn't like me much because of a situation with Davido, I will mention that all the time. It is not good for somebody to get away with murder. Wunmi Adebanjo should have been charged by the police for manslaughter. Second-degree murder, manslaughter. I didn't plan to kill somebody today, but I ended up killing them. There was a cover-up. I was the only journalist that investigated this case in Nigeria. I was the only journalist or anyone that told you that Mohbad died on 9/11, September 11. And I was the only journalist that told you that that nurse arrived when Mohbad was already dead. The problem with her is that she put herself in trouble by playing the dead thing. What is the dead thing? She came in there, she definitely knew that Mohbad had no pulse, but they were treating him and sending people to the pharmacy, trying to look good amongst the 15 inhabitants of the house. Splendid is not going to be prosecuted. His name didn't come up. But that's probably the reason why he went and disclosed that he went to the pharmacy and who was at the pharmacy and this and that. Everybody's face was swollen in that car when they were crying, taking him to Perez Hospital or bringing him back from there. Mohbad had a hospital report, and they were denying the father a police report so that he doesn't go into a mortuary. They denied him all those reports, so the man forcibly buried the child. And that was between Wunmi Adebanjo and her mother. Nigerians must say no to this coroner inquest. There are many things missing. They did not look into causation. Causation is when something causes a death indirectly. I have done many cases in America. A woman had serious heart problems. She was 85, but she was dying of cancer as well. One day, her son decided to poison her. The son poisoned her. She had a heart attack, and the autopsy said what killed her was something in her heart valve and not even the poison. But there's still a causative effect. Rest in peace, Mobad. I tried my best. $10,200. I tried.